So now STEM EDX alignment is loaded, and I have the diffraction spots in the center of the flow cam, but I'll need to center it properly. So first I will insert this hard F detector marking, and then I will center this spots in the middle of the detector. So you go to tune, diffraction alignment, and then use X and Y knobs to bring it to the center, and that's it. So now we go to the image, you click on Add F, and you adjust the brightness and contrast in the detector settings. So just do the auto one. So now let's find a nice area. So I will reduce the exposure time or the dwell time of the live view to about 500, and then increase my mag. Reset the eccentric focus, and you adjust the Z to bring the image into focus. So it's easier when you do that at a relatively high mag, not too high, around 200, 300. You can even start from the lowest magnification and then do it at a high mag. So looks like we're in focus now, and I will save this position there and then move to an amorphous area. Somewhere with no sample. This is perfect. Okay, and then stop the live view. Now we'll go back to the flow cam. So here we go out of diffraction, and now you should get a beam that's very similar to TM mode, which is there. First thing you want to do is go to the tune, and all the alignments will be done in direct alignment. So I'll start with the intensity list just to expand the beam. So that means if I use the intensity list, I should use the focus knob to expand the beam. So I think I'm okay there. So I want that caustic spot to be in the center. Just get rid of the screen marking. So that's the caustic spot. So let's start with beam shift. So beam shifts, X and Y knobs, you bring it to the center. That's done. I'll go to 225, which is, okay, 245, which is what I want. And then check the C2 aperture. So now it's swinging up and down, so that's the Y axis. So that means I would adjust the Y knob to make sure it expands uniformly from the center to the whole screen. So that looks fine, and then click done. So let's do the beam tilts. So what you want to do is unify the spots. Just the tip, the brightest spot is what you want. Repeat the same for Y. There. And the last one is rotation center. So for this one, you want to make sure you've expanded the beam enough for you to see the caustic spot, but I already did that at the start. So go to rotation center, completely stop the wobbling, and then use the X and Y knobs to bring that bright spot into the middle of the disc, which is that. That's sort of what you want. And now we can go to the objective and just roughly adjust the shape of the beam. So they're good. A couple of settings here. The first one is always good, but just go through each one of them and pick the one that makes the shape of the beam better. Oh, my voice is gone. Okay. So now you don't need to bother about centering the beam. You just go back to the fraction mode. Yeah. So now we're back to the fraction. As usual, you would bring the spots with the fraction alignments and X and Y knobs. Bring it to the middle of the detector. So this next step is very crucial, so you don't get a blurry image, and that's when you want to adjust the condenser stick, but that has to be done on a rankigram and on an amorphous area. So to get the rankigram, you need to be at the amorphous area, and to make life easy for yourself, you retract the detector, and then you put in the largest aperture. If the aperture is not aligned, you can click on adjust and just center it there. So now to get the rankigram, you adjust the Z. So this is what you want. You want to adjust the Z such that, so now let's change the display. So this is high contrast. So this is me going in the wrong direction. When I'm going in the right direction, I should be zooming in that way until I get to a point called the blowout point, which is there. So that's your rankigram. So what you don't want to do is adjust the focus knob. See if that rankigram remains in the center when you zoom out. And then when you zoom back in, you want that to be uniform. So the rankigram is not swinging from left to right. It's just expanding that way and contracting this way. So your blowout point is somewhere here. And then we adjust the eccentric focus back to 0. So this looks fine to me. Let's just go through what a bad one would look like. So I'll go through all the settings. So that's at 0, so that's terrible. The third one is that, and this is the first one. So I don't need to adjust any of this because I'm happy with how the rankigram is when I go in and out, when I expand and contract it. I'm happy with it, so I can do the final adjustment on the image itself. So click done, we go back to smaller aperture, and we insert the detector. So if you're a new user, it's just advisable to go through all the values here, pick the best one, and then do the final adjustments on the image. So now let's go to the image and recall the previous position. Where is it? Okay, so let's just do the auto contrast again. Just go back to make sure I have the smallest aperture in. Oh yeah, so what we've done is we put the 70 back in there, which is fine. And so now let's find the sample. I can't see anything. Oh yeah, because we have the bright field there. So let's select the hard F. So that's it. So back to this nice area here. If the image is out of focus, you press the eccentric focus to bring the focus value back to 0, and then you use the Z height to do rough focusing there. And if you want to focus it better, you can then use the focus knob again. There. So the Z height will bring it to close enough focus, and then you can use this focus knob to do the final tweaking. You want to make sure that you use the Z height first. So you don't want something like that and then using the focus knob to adjust it. So you want So you want to get there with Z first. Okay. And just use the joystick to bring it back to the center. So I think I'm fine with the Z. And I think I'm actually fine with the focus. So let's take an image with both the HDF and the bright field detector. So I'll just adjust the contrast on the HDF just to get rid of all the contamination. Do the same with the bright field, and now we should get a good image. And that's it. So let's acquire an EDX map now. So you define the drift area. So you want an area that has both dark and bright contrast, so it can differentiate it properly. And then you define the spectrum area. So I'll just make the drift area this way and the spectrum area that way. And I can go through the parameters for the EDX acquisition, so you can use a shorter dwell time or a longer dwell time. For a sample that contaminates easily, I would use a shorter dwell time there. So let's start with 2 and then click on start acquisition. So that's exactly how we want it. We don't want the sample drifting away. And now we go to VLOX and we go to processing. So that looks fine. And you draw a box. So that box is called the spectrum rectangle. So if you draw a box over the image, you get the spectrum. And on the right here, you can pick the elements you want or select auto ID. And you can export all of that elements to SI. So that will make a map of all the elements. So to SI, you get a map there. Now, the biggest question is the count, the EDX count. So let's check. So that's exactly what you want. You want something between 500 to 1K and above. So if we give this about 5 to 10 minutes, we should get a really good map.